When the light of a new day spills over its waters, the lake seems to tell a simple story. But dawn can be deceptive, for this story has never been a simple one.
If they could bring up a rock that has some zebra mussels attached to it.
These divers are part of the Ohio Sea Grant College research team at Put-in-Bay, an ever-growing team of experts trying to unravel the ever-growing complexities of a lake once thought dead, now threatened again.
We thought that zebra mussels would be limited to hard rocks and things like that because they can attach to them. Now we think we're starting to see them out in the softer sediments, which means that there's a whole new habitat out there for them.
None of us predicted the size of the population that we've seen in Lake Erie. Lake Erie essentially turns out to be zebra mussel heaven.
The waters of Lake Erie became host to the zebra mussel in the 1980s, probably brought here in the ballast of a European freighter. They're taking over the lake, killing most of the native clams and mollusks, and have been a constant menace to water intake systems. And because of the way they eat, it is now as if Lake Erie is hooked up to a giant swimming pool filter.
There's enough zebra mussels out there to totally filter an equal volume of water, or to filter the volume of the Western Basin within 7 days. And that's unbelievable.
But what is unbelievable to many is how the mussels, coupled with recent reductions in phosphate pollutants, have cleared the waters of this once murky lake. This device is used by the researchers to measure the clarity of the water.
We just used that at this location on the lake, and it was 435 centimeters, which is pretty deep. That's over 12 feet.
The vivid clarity of this underwater video would not have been possible just a few years ago. But as the water clears, it makes cloudy the future of the food chain and Erie's entire ecosystem. Measurements of the tiny plankton and other invertebrates that serve as the source of food show they are vanishing, depleting as much as 90% the past few years. Does anybody know how the next chapter will be written in Lake Erie's story?
I don't. Nobody knows. It's one of those things, you just kind of document it as it's happening, and at the end of the story or a certain time, you'll look back on it and see what has changed.
So the tiny plankton and other invertebrates that serve as the source of food show they are vanishing, depleting as much as 90% the past few years. Does anybody know how the next chapter will be written in Lake Erie's story?
I don't. Nobody knows. It's one of those things, you just kind of document it as it's happening, and at the end of the story or a certain time, you'll look back on it and see what has changed.
On West Sister Island, the voice of change is being heard clearly by the experts who band and count the waterfowl that nest here. This spring, they discovered again large numbers of new species, like the cormorant.
We've seen a dramatic increase in cormorants in Lake Erie, and in Ohio, they first showed up on West Sister Island in 1992, and since then have doubled just about every year on the island.
In the grasses of Crane Creek Wildlife Area, other changes are on the move. In this wetland womb of the lake, life is born and nurtured. The rare bald eagles that nest in these marshes are becoming less rare, producing more young every spring. But curiously, in recent years, they're showing higher levels of the toxic PCB, which could be yet another effect of the invasive zebra mussel.
And as Lake Erie becomes cleaner through phosphorus reduction in zebra mussels, those PCBs may stay in suspension longer, get incorporated into the fish, then get incorporated into the eagles.
Other life forms are responding to the dramatic changes happening in the depths of the lake. The increased clarity of the water allows more sunlight, and that sunlight is fostering large growths of heavy bush-like vegetation. And deep in the muddy bottoms lay the waiting nymphs of the mayfly.
They're coming back almost in the numbers that we had them in the 50s.
Carmen Trissler is studying the reemergence of the hexagenia at the Stone Lab at Put-in-Bay.
Out at the ferry dock, we had them where you could shovel them up. You could probably have taken a front-end loader or a bulldozer and shoveled them up this year already.
They're in here.
There they are.
Black in the
For the hungry walleye, the holy grail of sport fish on Lake Erie, the mayfly could be good news. More food for a fish whose numbers and harvest have been ebbing in recent years.
Relative to what we were seeing a few years ago, yes, we're far below what we saw, say, back in 1988 when we had our peak harvest.
But why the decline? Could it be the zebra mussel? Not likely, say the experts, who claim the walleye fishery began to tumble before the mussel arrived.
So one could argue that what we're seeing now, we were likely to have seen even if zebra mussels weren't here.
Not all of Lake Erie's fish are declining. Some, in fact, are flourishing. Whitefish, burbot, bass, even some muskie are being reported. It's all a mystery, and grabbing a hold of an answer won't be easy.
Well, yeah, we're entering into unknown territory right now. There's a lot of change going on in the environment, and we're not entirely sure where it's going to lead us.
This is a world few people have ever seen, the remains of the Prince, a ship that slipped into this watery grave off Kelly's Island about 90 years ago. One of the many shipwrecks and artifacts of Lake Erie, now revealed by a new transparency of the waters. No longer opaque and mysterious, the floor of the lake is coaxing a growing number of divers to glimpse the new vistas of history and nature, one of many ways Erie calls people to it.
Oh yeah, the weekdays are busy like weekends used to be, and weekends are busy like holidays used to be, and holidays are something completely different.
The Miller Ferry Line has been putting people on the lake for decades, and now afloat on the waves of a new prosperity. Crowds of summer tourists are making the short journey to the islands in record numbers. And at Put-in Bay, the sidewalks are awash in new faces and dollars. Business is sizzling.
Selling about 1,800 chickens on like a Saturday, which is a lot of birds.
The boating industry, meanwhile, is also basking in the new sparkle of the lake. Marina docks, old ones and new ones, are packed.
It's exciting to see people having a good time and the beach is full again. It's wonderful for us. It's wonderful for the whole area.
The Newman family is so excited about the changes, they've invested in the Emerald Empress, a 600-passenger cruise ship that island hops daily from its home port of Sandusky, another area reborn by the lake.
And we have shown a 13% increase in the tourism economy in Erie County just within the last 2 years.
Water has always called people to its shores, and Lake Erie is no exception. If not for frolic, for food. Fishing on Lake Erie is legend. 1,000 charter boats cast about its summer waters in search of the big ones, netting almost $1 billion a year. And even though the famous walleye catch right now is sagging, there is no slack in the line of optimism.
So the fish are out there, but, you know, they have changed locations. Their patterns are a little different.
Walleye hunters have been forced to change their techniques in recent years as the prized sport fish becomes more elusive in its changing habitat. And nobody knows for sure what's next. But those who wear the tans of a fisherman also wear the love of this lake on their sleeves.
She's still got a lot of pluses to her, and when she's tough, remember one thing, she's still one of the finest bodies of water for fishing in the country.
As Erie pounds against the shore, some days it seems restless, unsure of where it's headed, knowing only where it has been.
Lake Erie has been notorious for many years as being highly polluted, being a dead lake. Really was a misnomer in that it wasn't dead, it was really too alive.
But those days of massive algae blooms, toxic dumping, and fish kills are memory. After 20 years and billions of dollars worth of cleanup, Erie has become a gem of the Great Lakes, but not without its flaws. Some of the old problems persist. At the new Maumee Bay State Park, advisory signs are frequently posted, warning of pollutants from coliform bacteria, possibly from sewage systems. The experts are still searching for answers, but have only theories.
Because people think about it being gritty.
The experts are also searching the muddy sediments of the lake, looking for traces of old chemical pollutants, like PCBs or phosphorus, that spill every day into Lake Erie from old and notorious sources, the Maumee and Ottawa rivers. Still the worst conduit of pollution on the lake. More work remains.
We got to take care of the entire watershed. We got to be thinking about farmland that's 150 miles away from Lake Erie, because that eventually, as you can see, the Maumee River sort of looks like Cafe au lait today. That makes its way into Lake Erie.
And then there's the invasive and pervasive zebra mussel, nature's exotic wild card in the future of this lake, making things happen that some thought were never possible.
I personally think that what we're seeing, the changes due to the zebra mussel, are probably as large as any changes since the retreat of the glaciers.
And with this dawn of a new era, Erie becomes a giant environmental experiment, a teacher, providing the new lessons of an old lake.
And I think the lessons we need to learn is that we need to be really careful about the influences that we allow to occur on Lake Erie.
There's a sense that some of the change that you're seeing may be reflecting a change in the capacity of the lake to support fish populations.
You may have different people seeing a problem where others don't see a problem. You know, some say the lake is beautiful, that's great. Others will say productivity's declining, that's not so great. People today are more in tune to what nature's needs are and not what man's needs specifically are. And that if nature fares well, we'll fare well.